we recently hit 2,000 subscribers. Thanks a lot for that. By the way, I wouldn't be able to do what I do without you guys. And to celebrate, I've decided to do a top 10 list of my favorite anime and manga of all time. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. Number 10, Call of the Night. Call of the Night is the first anime I made a video on for this channel, and I probably wouldn't be doing YouTube without having watched this anime. Besides that, the anime for this series is one of the most visually satisfying and engaging shows I've had the pleasure of watching in a while. But where my true love for Call of the Night comes from, and what actually pushes it into my top 10, is the manga. When I say that the Call of the Night manga is one of the greatest things I've ever read in my entire life, I actually mean it. Without completely spoiling it, all I can say is that this romance manga is actually a shonen battle manga in disguise, and it benefits from being able to balance the romantic elements with the action and the other plot points extremely well. I really don't even think there's a bad character in this manga, and I'm a bigger hater than Eddie Brock in Spider-Man 3.
I want you to kill Peter Parker.
So that's really saying something. I've reread this manga 3 times, and it still has the exact same effect on me as when I read it the first time, and I'm always excited for each chapter as they come out. Number 9, Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is the first manga I ever read from start to finish, well, to the end of part 1. At the time, I was very against reading manga, as I didn't think it would give me an experience similar to that which I had watching anime. But I kept seeing stuff about Chainsaw Man online constantly, and eventually I broke and picked up the manga, and I couldn't really put it down until I had finished. Reading Chainsaw Man gave me one of the most wild emotional roller coasters I've experienced reading a manga to this very day. One second I'd be laughing my ass off, and the next I'd be crying my soul out because 2 brothers are having a snowball fight. If you know, you know. Chainsaw Man altogether really isn't something I could describe my time with in a word, a sentence, or even a few paragraphs, because I would just have too much to say. Number 8, Fire Force. If you're familiar with my channel, it's probably not at all surprising that Fire Force is here. And if you're not familiar with my channel, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. I swear I'm kind of funny. That aside, Fire Force is one of those series that I liked but never really kept up with as time went on. I watched season 1 when it was airing, but I kinda never got around to season 2 until last year when I rewatched both seasons and then read the rest of the manga. On top of having my favorite power system in manga, Fire Force has some of the coolest and most interesting characters, themes, and concepts I've ever seen. Almost all of the characters are extremely enjoyable, and the manga never really stops being fun to read at any point, which is impressive considering it has over 300 chapters. Both mediums for Fire Force, that being the anime and the manga, give unique experiences while being the same story, with the anime having some of the best sound effects ever, and the manga having such an amazing art style that you can't really find anywhere else but SoulEater, but you get my point. Number 7, Oregairu. Oregairu is an anime that is incredibly important to me, and it has been in my top 10 ever since I watched it 3 years ago. As corny as this is gonna sound, the main character, Hachiman Hikigaya, reminded me a lot of me at 15 years old, and seeing the stuff he has to get past and eventually overcome really ended up helping me sort my own shit out as I got older. Besides that, I think that this is just one of the best anime I've ever seen in general, with infinite rewatch value, as I rewatch Oregairu at least once a year, just for fun. The characters, the music, the story, and as well as the fact that this is one of the very few anime that has a guaranteed cry button, makes this a very important and personal entry on this list. Number 6, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. JoJo's is a series that I disregarded for a long time because I considered it to be too weird, but with the then upcoming release of the Stone Ocean anime, I decided to give the series a try, and by that I mean I thought Jolene was so hot that I was going to watch all 5 existing parts to get to part 6. Literally. But I quickly forgot that purpose as I was absorbed into JoJo's rather quickly. The weirdness I had contempted it for in the past became what kept drawing me in whenever I started an episode. JoJos also has what I consider to be the best soundtrack in anime across all the openings, character themes, and endings made for the series that really capture the feel of the time the part takes place in. However, I ran into a problem after watching part 6. I originally read part 1 instead of watching it, and when I transitioned to the anime, I felt that I liked the stylization of the anime more than the manga. So after finishing the part 6 anime, I was worried about moving on to part 7 since it's not animated. But to my surprise, I was amazed with the experience the Steel Ball Run manga gave me. There is a review of Steel Ball Run on my channel that should appear in the top right corner, so feel free to check it out once this video is done. But to end this entry off, JoJo's has given me one of the most unique experiences I've ever had watching an anime, and there's still potential for it to move up because I still haven't read part 8. Breaking off into the top 5, we have one of the big 3 with Bleach. Bleach is a series that took me a long time to fully appreciate. I started the anime in 2020 and ended up dropping it during the Car arc. And over the course of the next couple years, I would try to pick it back up and drop it again, causing me to have some light distaste for the series as a whole. But due to some recommendations from friends and the then upcoming adaptation of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, I decided to pick up the manga. And I ended up reading all 698, 699, including the Hell Arc one-shot, chapters in about a week and a half. I simply could not put it down. Any problems I had with the Bleach anime were non-existent in the manga, and this was honestly one of the best manga reading experiences I've ever had. Number 4. Naruto. Naruto was the first long anime I ever watched, and it's remained somewhere in my top 10 ever since I watched it all the way back in 2018. I grew up knowing about Naruto thanks to unknowingly playing the Storm games with my cousins, but I never really knew what the actual series was like. Watching Naruto was probably the reason I am an anime fan now. Much like with Bleach, once I started Naruto, I couldn't put it down, and I ended up watching the entire anime in about 2 months. Not only did Naruto open up my view to anime as a whole, but it helped me become more comfortable with trying anime that spanned into the 300 plus episode count. Naruto was also the very first anime I cried to and holds many spots for some of my favorite things in anime. Naruto vs Sasuke and Kakashi vs Obito are my top 2 fights of all time. Sasuke has been my second favorite anime character for I don't know how long. The Sasuke retrieval arc is my third favorite anime arc, and there's so much more that still sticks in my brain from Naruto, despite me having initially watched the series 5 years ago and haven't rewatched it since. Naruto will forever be one of my favorite anime of all time, and will honestly probably never be moved from this spot. Number 3. One Piece. That's right, I have the entirety of the big 3 all in a row because I consider them to be relative to each other. One Piece and I have a very up and down history. I was originally a person who claimed they would never watch One Piece because it was too long. That was up until 2020 happened and I found myself with an extreme excess of free time on my hands. I talked about this in another video I made titled 26 Years of One Piece, but I'll reiterate here. When I watched One Piece, I wasn't in the best mental state due to the current status of the world at the time, among other things, and 900 episodes of One Piece really kept me from living in my own head too much. So I have a bit of bias towards it in a general sense, but even without that bias, One Piece is one of the best stories I've ever had the pleasure of watching and eventually reading. Of course, there are things I could and do complain about every now and then, but it doesn't lessen how much I love these characters and this world. I could probably make an entire video talking about how much I love One Piece. In fact, I actually have, so I'm going to cut this here before this gets too long. Number 2. Yu Hakusho. To put things bluntly, Yu Hakusho is the best anime I've ever watched. If I wasn't including manga on this list, Yu Hakusho would be at number 1. Everything about this anime is simply amazing. As with a lot of anime of its time, Yu Yu Hakusho is incredibly aesthetically pleasing, having an amazing art style and soundtrack, along with its impressive dub, which I consider to be one of the best.
I don't care if she's a girl or a baby or somebody's grandmother. I'll still knock her out.
On top of those, Yu Yu Hakusho holds a lot of my favorite spots in anime. Yusuke is my favorite main character, Hiei is my favorite anime character of all time, Sensui and Toguro are my top 2 anime villains, and the Dark Tournament is my favorite anime arc ever. With the upcoming live action adaptation, which has me a bit nervous by the way, I'd love to rewatch the series sometimes, and I'm sure I'll still see it the same way I do now. Number 1, SoulEater. What a surprise that SoulEater has turned up at number 1. It's not like my entire channel is loosely centered around it, or my profile picture is the SoulEater character named SoulEater, or my name on Twitter is literally Ray, CEO of SoulEater. Jokes aside, SoulEater is actually the second most recently read series on this list after Call of the Night. I read SoulEater after finishing the Fire Force manga, since the two are connected, and I really enjoyed my read. After getting done with the manga, I had it sitting somewhere in my top 15. But then I kept thinking about what I had just read, and after a bit of time, I realized I loved SoulEater a lot more than I was letting on. Everything from the characters to the art styles to the fights and the villains simply gave me a feeling that I haven't felt since reading One Piece. I'm not saying the two are similar in any way, I don't want to get in trouble for that. And wouldn't feel again until I read Call of the Night. Everything about SoulEater just feels so stylized and unique, like something you could never find again out of hundreds of manga. The world is gothic and creepy, and every character design just leaks tons of personality. The art style allows things to go from cool to funny to downright creepy at the flip of a coin, and these changes will always hit right. And while I don't necessarily love the anime's adaptation of the story, I can't ignore what it gives us in the form of its incredibly unique soundtrack, great animation that still holds up incredibly well, and its amazing voice acting in both its Japanese and English dubs. I find everything about SoulEater to be incredibly intriguing, and am praying that one day it gets the adaptation it truly deserves.
Lately I'm feeling so cool. Yeah. Come and get a taste of the hip soul food. Spice up the animal with neo haiku. While soul goes to school, way slash kung fu.